Good evening. This is AWANI Tonight. I'm Cynthia Ng. PM assures anti-party hopping bill to be tabled next week. And Malaysia's stance on the crisis in Ukraine remains the same amid calls from EU to support upcoming UN vote against Russia. More on that coming up. No more yellow status for casual contacts. Health Minister Kari Jamaluddin says that individuals will only be notified through the MySejahtera application instead if they have casually contacted with an individual that is tested positive for COVID-19.
Prior to this, an individual traced with casual contact will have their status changed from blue to yellow. Starting today as well, those who have received their booster shots and are close contacts to COVID-positive individuals will no longer need to undergo home quarantine. Khairi added that travelers arriving the country from abroad through 3 programs will not need to do the 6-day COVID test procedure effective Thursday. This includes travelers entering Malaysia via Air and Land Vaccinated Travel Lane VTL between Malaysia and Singapore, the Langkawi Travel Bubble, and the One-Stop Center for Short-Term Business Visitors.
The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC confirms that approximately $10 million worth of Datuk Rohana Roshan's assets have been frozen following investigations into alleged connection to the 1MDB scandal. MACC Chief Tan Sri Azam Baki said investigations are still ongoing and efforts are underway to recoup the money and assets involved.
The amount that we are looking for is 10 million USD. Kes ni kita akan memanggil juga individu lain, tapi I think buat masa ni saya tidak boleh nak share nama-nama individu terlibat, dan juga perkara lain yang akan terlibat dalam hal ini ialah di mana kerjasama antara pihak AGC kita diperlukan untuk kita mendapatkan beberapa lagi keterangan daripada pihak US.
The MACC is investigating Rohana after former Goldman Sachs banker Tim Leissner told a US federal court he gave her a $10 million home in London bought using money from 1MDB. Azam also confirmed that the mansion owned by Rohana in London, together with other assets, were frozen. The MACC is not investigating Tawfiq Aiman over his alleged link to the 1MDB scandal. Tan Sri Azam Baki says this is because MACC was only tasked to repatriate 1MDB funds from Singapore. Although he acknowledged that Tawfiq, the husband of former Bank Negara Governor Tan Sri Zeti Akhtar Aziz, is being investigated by the police. In November last year, the MACC announced that Singapore had repatriated to Malaysia $15.4 million in 1MDB-linked funds, which involved a company co-owned by Tawfiq. Zeti and her husband again came under the spotlight when former Goldman Sachs banker Tim Leissner testified in a US court last week alleging bribery involving Tawfiq in the 1MDB scandal. Opposition leader Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim has demanded that Bank Negara come clean over its alleged involvement in the 1MDB scandal in light of recent allegations. Failing to do so, he says, will hurt the central bank's reputation.
Soal pengaliran wang keluar ini bawah tanggungjawab Bank Negara. Dan ini tidak boleh dilepaskan begitu. Bila satu institusi induk melepas daripada tanggungjawab pengawasan, maka semuanya akan mengambil kesempatan dan jadilah skandal skala besar di antara skandal melibatkan negara yang terbesar di dunia. Jadi ini yang saya minta sampaikan, dan minta apa yang kita minta daripada 18.1 ini. Mesti ada penjelasan, pertamanya siasatan yang menyeluruh. Kita sampaikan juga kepada Perdana Menteri sebentar tadi.
Barisan Nasional launched its manifesto today for the Johor elections with a promise to continue giving all assemblymen equal allocations regardless of party, should it form the next Johor government.
Johor BN Chief Datuk Hasni Mohamad said BN would also conduct redelineation exercise if it had 2/3 majority, especially for constituencies with a high number of voters. The manifesto outlined 43 initiatives under 5 key areas. BN promises the tabling of an anti-hopping enactment in the State Assembly. This, Hasni said, would be the first thing on the agenda if BN was given the mandate to help the Johor state government.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob has given his assurance that an amendment to the Constitution in relation to the Antiparty hopping bill will be tabled in Parliament next week.
This is according to Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim following a meeting with the PM along with DAP Secretary General Lim Guan Eng and Amanah President Muhammad Sabu today. The meeting held at the Prime Minister's office also involved talks on relaxing the SOPs for the upcoming Johor election. Anwar had earlier proposed for leeway in the SOPs while campaigning as the country transitions to the endemic phase.
The conversion of the title from Sarawak's Chief Minister to Premier comes into effect today. Meanwhile, the title Deputy Chief Minister would also be changed to Deputy Premier, while Assistant Minister will now be known as Deputy Minister.
On February 15th, the Sarawak Legislative Assembly passed the bill by more than a two-thirds majority for the change. The Sarawak Governor, Tun Abdul Taib Mahmud, earlier gazetted the amended Constitution of the State of Sarawak Ordinance 2022 on February 28th, with March 1st set as the date of which the ordinance shall come into force.
We will go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Banyak kuman berbahaya di luar. Jangan pegang. Jangan pegang.
Kita perlukan penyelesaian 24 jam Lifebuoy Silver Shield formula ini melawan kuman berbahaya.
Selamat datang ke yang mana satu idaman you. Jika anda ada RM109, mana satu yang anda mahu? 90 saluran Astro atau internet laju? Persoalannya, kenapa you kena pilih kalau semuanya ada dengan bundle Jimat, internet laju dan 90 saluran Astro hanya RM109 sebulan sahaja? Kan? Call 03-7481-3000 sebelum promosi habis.
Welcome back. The European Union has urged Malaysia to support the draft resolution in the United Nations General Assembly condemning Russia's aggression in Ukraine. The call was made by the French, German and other EU ambassadors in Kuala Lumpur today.
This move, this massive move, and already the suffering and the pain to civilian population that it is causing is creating a new global security threat. It's not only European security that is in danger, it is the global security, especially when we see the menaces and the threats by President Putin of putting the nuclear arsenal on high alert.
French ambassador to Malaysia, Roland Gallagher, noted Malaysia had in 2014 voted to reaffirm Ukraine's territorial integrity after Russia annexed Crimea and urged the country to back Kiev once more.
This time we're not talking about Crimea, we're talking about the whole of the country. The territorial integrity of Ukraine being violated, the sovereignty of Ukraine being violated, the political independence of Ukraine being violated, the right of Ukraine to choose its own security arrangements being violated. So if Malaysia voted in favor of the resolution in 2014, then it should certainly vote in favor of the resolution this time around. And why, you will ask me? Well, for a very simple reason, that Malaysia, like Ukraine, is not a party to any alliance, which means that at the end of the day, the only defense and the ultimate defense of Malaysia lies in the respect of the principles that I have just enumerated. Territorial integrity, sovereignty, political independence, the right to make their own choices.
Malaysia is among 15 Asian states, including Singapore and Indonesia, who have yet to speak in the UN General Assembly debate.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob says Malaysia's stance on the Ukrainian crisis remains the same for now, ahead of the UN General Assembly debate. Malaysia, like several other Southeast Asian countries, has taken a more measured approach in response to Russia's aggression by choosing not to outrightly condemn Moscow.
I have made statements when I was in Thailand and Cambodia. So my statement still same statement as I made earlier. In fact, tomorrow, I think, day after tomorrow or tomorrow, our representative will involve in the debates in the United Nations. So we wait for them after they make a statement, after they involve in the debate, then we will issue the statement after that.
The Prime Minister was speaking at KLIA after meeting a group of Malaysians who had been evacuated from Ukraine. 9 Malaysians and 2 dependents had travelled from Kiev to Poland by land before flying back to Malaysia at around 3 p.m. today via Doha, Qatar. Sabri said all 24 Malaysians registered with the embassy in Ukraine have been evacuated, adding that the Malaysian embassy in Kiev will be temporarily closed.
Russia is stepping up its attack on Ukraine, striking its second largest city with a missile, causing a huge explosion and damages. Officials say the regional government's headquarters at Freedom Square in Kharkiv, near the Russian border, was hit. At least 20 people were injured, including a child. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of committing war crimes and said civilians were deliberately targeted. Elsewhere, satellite images show a huge convoy of Russian armored vehicles closing in on the capital Kiev, drawing fears that the worst is yet to come for Ukraine. Russia maintains that it isn't targeting civilian infrastructure, but there is a growing body of evidence to show that civilians are being targeted. The UN said that over 400 civilian casualties in Ukraine have been reported so far. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam called on residents to remain calm amid fears over compulsory mass testing and rumoured citywide lockdown. Lam previously said the government was considering a hard lockdown after daily COVID-19 numbers surged to record levels with over 32,000 new cases and 117 deaths the past 24 hours. All 7.4 million residents in Hong Kong are set to undergo COVID-19 testing 3 times beginning March 17. Lam said that food supply remains normal and urged people not to listen to rumours. But residents still flock to supermarkets to stock up on essentials, fearing that the mass testing would eventually separate families. Hong Kong adopts a zero-COVID policy, just like China, which mandates isolation at quarantine centres or hospitals for those tested positive. A new government assistance system, JKM Pay, for people with disabilities is facing major pushback from its main stakeholders. Were they consulted? Tonight on Consider This, we speak to our guests about persons with disabilities and flaws in policy making. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get all the latest news updates on astroawani.com, or you can get it from the Astro AWANI app. I'm Xin Ji Eng. Thank you for watching.
Barisan Nasional mengumumkan dokumen khusus untuk pilihan raya negeri Johor dengan satu matlamat utama yang didukungi 5 ikhtiar. Suruhanjaya Pencegahan Rasuah Malaysia berjaya tangkap 18 individu terlibat sindiket melombong Bitcoin melalui operasi